Okay, let's unpack this. Relationships are absolutely fundamental to our lives, aren't they?
They really are.
They're meant to be sources of joy, support, connection, like the bedrock that helps us thrive.
Ideally.
But sometimes, maybe subtly, maybe suddenly, they become something else entirely.
Yeah, something painful, draining, just deeply unhealthy.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? And often heartbreaking.
It really is. What might start with, genuine connection and good times can sort of warp into this dynamic dominated by tension, imbalance.
That feeling of being diminished, maybe.
Exactly. Diminished rather than uplifted. And look, these aren't just occasional disagreements. We're talking patterns here. Patterns that cause real harm.
Right. And this deep dive is about trying to understand why do these relationships turn toxic?
And also the really complex reasons people find it so incredibly hard to leave them.
Yeah, even when they know they're being hurt, it seems obvious from the outside, but
It's rarely that simple inside. And then, crucially, we want to look at how to navigate that path out towards healing.
So we've gathered a stack of sources, articles, research notes, some personal accounts too.
Yeah, exploring this really nuanced and, frankly, painful topic from different angles.
Our mission today is to sift through those, pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts.
And really try to make sense of why we sometimes stay stuck in relationships that are, hurting us.
And most importantly, what steps can actually help someone find their way to healthier ground.
Definitely.
So let's start maybe by clarifying. What do the sources actually mean by toxic or unhealthy relationships?
Okay. Well, at its core, it seems to be about a consistent pattern, a pattern of harm and imbalance.
Not just a one-off bad argument.
No. It's where one or maybe both people are damaging each other. It leads to things like exploitation, tension, and just a real lack of that positive support you expect.
So it's like the opposite of what a healthy bond should be.
Precisely. Think of it as a fundamental contrast. Healthy connections, they add to your life, they build you up. Toxic ones, they consistently deplete you, tear you down.
And the sources, they point to specific behaviors, right? Things that create that harmful pattern. They might not always be obvious to outsiders.
Exactly. But they're there.
Yeah.
You often see constant non-constructive criticism.
So not helpful feedback, just putting the other person down.
Right. A steady stream of it. Then there are attempts at control and dominance.
Like monitoring calls or texts, dictating who you see.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Communications activities, pathological jealousy is another big theme that comes up.
Leading to suspicion, maybe more monitoring.
For sure. Invasive monitoring. It's really unsettling.
That control element sounds chilling because it isolates you, doesn't it?
It does. And then there's the way they can kind of mess with your head.
Psychological manipulation.
That's a hallmark. Things like denying their own bad behavior or justifying it away, using guilt or fear to get their way.
Emotional blackmail, essentially.
That's the term sometimes used, yes.
Yeah.
And they rarely take responsibility, do they? It's always shifting the blame.
Always your fault somehow.
And there's often just this pervasive sense of tension, like you're walking on eggshells all the time.
Yeah, that feeling.
Creating constant drama or tension seems to be a tactic noted in the sources. Keeps the other person off balance.
And in more severe cases?
It can include using threats or overtly demeaning language. Look, these aren't isolated incidents. They weave together. They form this consistently damaging reality for the person living it.
Okay, so here's where it gets, for me, really interesting. If these relationships are so clearly harmful, if they cause so much pain, why on earth is it so incredibly difficult for people to leave?
Ah, yes.
From the outside, it just seems like the obvious answer, get out. But the sources really dig into the complex reality for the person inside that relationship.
This is maybe the hardest part for people on the outside to really grasp it. There isn't one simple answer.
Right.
One surprising reason the sources highlight is, the good aspects.
The good parts, even in a bad relationship.
Exactly. Even a deeply unhealthy relationship isn't necessarily 100% bad 100% of the time. There might have been a wonderful beginning, shared history, moments of laughter, fun, maybe even real connection mixed in with all the bad stuff.
So people cling to those.
Desperately. They cling to those moments, hoping they'll come back for good, or feeling like leaving means giving up those few precious good parts. It's powerful.
Trapped by the memory, or maybe the potential of the good time.
Exactly. Or just by that very human desire to see the best in someone you care about.
Okay, what else?
Another very real, very practical barrier is economic dependence.
Financial reliance.
Totally. One person might rely entirely on the other financially. Maybe they give up work to raise kids, for instance. The fear of not being able to support themselves or their children,
Yeah.
it's immense.
A huge barrier.
And in extreme cases, the sources note this isn't accidental. It's deliberate financial abuse, limiting access to money specifically to make leaving feel impossible.
Wow. That's a powerful form of control. And then there's a psychological one that sounds particularly, insidious. The comfort of the familiar.
Yes, this is a really key insight from the research. It sounds strange, I know, but the known discomfort and pain of an unhealthy relationship can sometimes feel perversely safer than the complete unknown.
The unknown of being alone or starting over.
Right. Navigating life independently, trying to build something new. For some people, tragically, this painful dynamic is actually a pattern they've seen or experienced before, maybe in childhood.
So the unhealthy chaos feels familiar.
Almost, dare I say it, comfortable in a way, because it's familiar territory, even though it's harmful.
The devil you know. Scary thought. And tied to that maybe is the belief that this is normal.
Yes, that comes up too. Especially if someone has limited experience with healthy relationships, perhaps didn't see healthy dynamics growing up. They might genuinely believe all relationships involve this level of conflict or tension or disappointment.
So they think it's their job just to cope.
Pretty much. Just tough it out. They don't really have a reference point for what healthy actually looks and feels like.
That's heartbreaking, thinking that pain is just the baseline. Okay, this next one feels really tough to talk about how these relationships can actually reinforce negative self-beliefs.
This is a really vicious cycle mentioned in the sources. If someone already struggles with low self-esteem.
Maybe believing they're unlovable or not worthy.
Exactly. If those beliefs are already there, staying in a relationship where they are treated poorly can actually feel like proof.
Proof that their negative beliefs are true.
Yes. It can validate their deepest fears about themselves, that this is all they deserve, or that they'll inevitably be abandoned anyway. The relationship tragically feeds that internal narrative of worthlessness.
Oh, wow. So the abuse confirms their worst fears about themselves in all of this. Navigating the good and bad, the financial fears, the familiarity, the self-doubt. It just sounds utterly exhausting.
It absolutely is. And the sources really highlight this as a critical, often overlooked barrier, the sheer energy drain.
Just keeping afloat takes everything.
Unhealthy relationships demand immense emotional, mental, sometimes even physical effort. The constant tension, the arguments, needing to be vigilant, managing the other person's reactions, it consumes nearly all of a person's energy and time.
Leaving little room for anything else.
Exactly. Little to no capacity left to focus on their own well-being, build resources, or, crucially, make concrete plans to leave. And really abusive dynamics, just surviving day to day, is a full-time job.
So what does this constant state of depletion and distress actually do to the person caught in this? The sources seem very clear about the severe toll it takes on well-being.
Oh, the impact is profound. And it's interconnected across mental, physical, and social health.
Let's start with mental and emotional.
Okay. Constant exposure to negative behavior leads pretty directly to emotional exhaustion, deep self-doubt, heightened anxiety and tension that just become your baseline feeling.
Contributing to depression, I imagine.
A significant contributor, yes. And that steady stream of criticism we talked about, it just erodes self-esteem, makes you question your own judgment, your own worth.
And that negative environment, it must color your view of everything.
It really does. Leaves you feeling vulnerable. And studies cited in the sources confirm it. Sustained relationship stress significantly increases the likelihood of anxiety and depressive disorders.
And this isn't just feeling stressed, is it? You mentioned a physical component earlier.
Absolutely. This constant stress keeps activating the body's stress response system, fight or flight, over and over.
Which involves stress hormones like cortisol.
Exactly. And the chronic release of those hormones isn't just something you feel emotionally. It has real, measurable physical consequences over time.
Like what?
Repeated surges can contribute to issues like high blood pressure, elevated blood sugar, a weakened immune system. And research indicates a link to an increased risk of heart problems down the line.
So it's not just hurting your heart emotionally, but potentially physically too. Wow.
That's right. Your body is literally reacting to the stress of the relationship environment.
And then there's the social impact, isolation.
Almost always. Toxic relationships very often lead to isolation. Sometimes the toxic person actively works to cut you off from friends and family, makes you more dependent on them.
Controlling who you see.
Yes. Other times, though, the person in the relationship is just so drained by the drama, maybe ashamed of the situation, or just so preoccupied that they withdraw themselves.
Pull away from their support network.
Exactly. And that lack of positive social and emotional connection, it makes the negative impact even deeper, leaves you feeling truly, utterly alone in your struggle.
It really paints a picture of a person just being slowly diminished on every single level.
It can be incredibly destructive.
To help bring these dynamics to life a bit more, one of the sources shared a really powerful story. The experience of someone called Hadil and her partner Khalid. It seems to illustrate how this can unfold.
Yes, it's a very compelling and very human narrative. Hadil was described as a woman passionate about her work. She met Khalid, who was dedicated to his, and started, like many relationships do.
Whirlwind romance. Seemed perfect.
Exactly. Full of promise, felt wonderful at first.
But then, the shift began.
Yes. Gradually, Khalid's behavior started to change. It might have started subtly, maybe disguised as concern or advice.
Plausible deniability?
Kind of. But it escalated into constant criticism, targeting Hadil's character, her choices, chipping away at her self-confidence.
And then came that increase in control we talked about earlier.
Precisely. He started monitoring her phone, demanding to know who she was talking to, getting accusatory if she didn't respond instantly.
That sounds suffocating.
Hadil began to feel trapped.
Yeah.
Constantly watched, constantly questioned, and his justification was particularly chilling. He claimed it was all out of love and fear for her.
Twisting a positive emotion into a tool of control, that manipulation again.
Exactly. And the story describes a really heartbreaking lowest point for Hadil.
How bad did it get?
The constant criticism, the isolation, the control, it just wore her down completely. She reached a state of deep, deep despair. Disconnected from friends, family, losing interest in everything she once loved.
Just hollowed out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the pain became so unbearable that her thoughts actually turned to ending her own life. She saw it as the only way to escape the suffering.
Oh, that's an incredibly dark, desperate place to be. But the story describes a crucial turning point for her, right? A moment of clarity.
Thankfully, yes. In that moment of deepest despair, she remembered a verse from the Quran. And do not kill yourselves. Indeed, Allah is to you ever merciful.
Wow.
And this brought a powerful realization that her life was sacred, that God saw her suffering, that she wasn't truly alone. It was a moment that seemed to shift her perspective from ending the pain to finding a way out of it.
That flicker of hope, remembering her intrinsic worth, maybe.
I think so. And it led her to take a really vital step.
Reaching out.
It did. Inspired by that realization, she reached out to a close friend. That friend provided much-needed support and, importantly, suggested seeking professional help, seeing a therapist.
And that step was transformative.
It seems so. Therapy helped her articulate and really understand the toxic dynamic she was caught in. It solidified the realization that she absolutely deserved a better life, one free from that kind of harm.
Gave her perspective.
Yes. And she also found renewed strength in another Quranic verse. Allah does not burden soul beyond that with which he has endowed it. She started to understand that she possessed the inner resilience to protect herself, to forge a new path.
Hadil's story is just so powerful because it tragically mirrors so many of the signs we've discussed.
The constant criticism, the control,
the isolation, the terrible impact on her well-being, it was all there. And her journey really highlights that the very first crucial step in finding a path out is that moment of recognition.
Seeing the problem for what it truly is.
Yeah, awareness. That seems to be the essential foundation for any kind of change.
Absolutely, you can't fix what you don't acknowledge.
So, inspired by experiences like Hadil's and drawing on the insights from the sources, let's talk about finding that path out. And then, just as importantly, the path towards healing afterwards.
Okay.
Because getting out and recovering, it isn't a single event, is it? It's a process. But it is possible.
It absolutely is possible, but it requires deliberate steps. Beginning, as you said, with that awareness, you have to truly assess the relationship.
Take an honest look, even if it's painful.
Yes, a really honest look at how it's impacting you. Are the signs obvious? Like deception, control, demeaning behavior.
Or are they maybe less visible, more subtle?
Right, like a constant hum of anxiety, persistent self-doubt, or just that general feeling of being drained that always seems tied to this connection. This requires some deep internal reflection, being brutally honest with yourself about what you're experiencing.
And the sources emphasize you absolutely do not need to navigate this alone.
Crucially, no. Seeking support is just vital. Reaching out to trusted friends, family, it provides essential emotional cushioning. It helps counteract the isolation that these relationships thrive on.
So tell your close circle what you're going through.
Yes. And professional help, like therapy or counseling, can be invaluable too. It offers an objective perspective, validates your experience, and gives you guided strategies, maybe for setting boundaries, maybe for planning a safe exit.
Okay, so once you've started to assess and build that support system, boundaries, they become fundamental, don't they?
Absolutely fundamental. Learning to say no clearly, confidently is such a powerful tool.
Identifying your red lines.
Exactly. What behaviors are absolutely unacceptable? What are you no longer willing to tolerate? And then communicate your needs calmly but firmly.
How might that sound?
It could be as simple as stating, I need some time to think and I can't discuss this right now, or that kind of language is not okay with me. The sources really emphasize clarity and consistency. Using I statements helps express your experience without getting sucked into blaming and arguing.
Being firm, avoiding hesitation.
Yes, and sometimes even the strongest boundaries aren't enough. Sometimes cutting communication becomes necessary, maybe even completely cutting ties. That's the really difficult reality, isn't it? While incredibly painful, sometimes cutting ties entirely is the only way to create the space you desperately need for healing.
You have to hold on to the why.
Yes, remember why you're leaving, the harm the relationship caused. And be prepared. Toxic individuals often escalate their attempts to pull you back in when you try to leave.
Emotional blackmail again.
Manipulation.
You got it. Resisting that urge is critical. Closing the door firmly, maybe permanently. It might be the necessary step. Distance, physical and emotional, is a key part of recovery. There's definitely truth in out of sight, out of mind, or at least less in your face.
Creating space helps detachment, okay? And while you're navigating all this, whether it's setting boundaries or creating distance, prioritizing your own well-being has to be like non-negotiable. Absolutely. Your health, your safety, they have to come first. It's completely normal, by the way, to feel guilt or worry about the other person, especially right after leaving.
That must be tough.
It is.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, this decision is about your life, your well-being. Give yourself permission to rest, to recover. Reconnect with activities that bring you joy, things that define you outside of that relationship.
Self-care isn't selfish here.
Not at all. It's essential. Care for your physical health too. Sleep, good food, move your body. Even just a simple walk can help manage stress hormones. And actively, consciously work on rebuilding the self-confidence that was likely eroded.
So even after taking those big steps, assessing, getting support, setting boundaries, maybe leaving the sources, talk about the significant heartbreak involved, it's not just missing the person, is it? Even if the relationship was bad.
No, it's definitely not just missing the person. It's a complex form of grief. You're grieving the loss of the relationship itself, yes, but also the future you might have envisioned. Maybe even a part of your own identity that felt intertwined with that dynamic. It's a real loss.
It is. And it's a process. You need to be an active participant in navigating that grief.
So how do you handle those waves of emotion? The sadness, anger, confusion maybe. They can feel overwhelming.
The sources suggest some tools to avoid being sort of drowned by them. Practicing mindfulness is one.
Stepping back, observing feelings.
Exactly. Step back, observe your feelings, anger, sadness, whatever they are, and acknowledge them without judging yourself for having them. Focusing on your breath can be a simple anchor when emotions feel really intense.
Grounding yourself.
Yes. And try, if you can, to reframe the ending, not just as a loss, but maybe as an opportunity for significant personal growth.
And getting those feelings out seems important too.
Very. Expressing your thoughts and feelings about the whole experience, the before, the during, the after, is incredibly powerful. Research actually supports this. Writing it down, journaling about the dynamic and how you feel now, can significantly relieve negative emotions tied to difficult relationship endings. What about those lingering, painful thoughts, maybe negative ones about yourself that the relationship kind of amplified?
It's crucial to challenge those. When those painful or distorted thoughts pop up, and they likely will recognize them for what they are, ask yourself, is this based on fact, or is it an assumption, an old script?
Questioning the thought.
Yes. Weigh the evidence. What supports this thought? What contradicts it? Try to find a more balanced, realistic perspective. This is a core technique in many therapeutic approaches discussed in the sources.
And there's that tricky mental thing, rosy retrospection, where you suddenly only remember the good stuff after it's over.
Ah, yes, that's so common. Your brain may be trying to protect you or simplify things, might want to gloss over all the bad stuff and only focus on the few good moments.
Forgetting why you left.
Exactly. ignoring the real pain and the problems that actually led to the end. Now, acknowledging the good times existed is okay. It's part of the reality. But studies actually show that actively remembering the negative aspects, the reasons you left, is surprisingly more effective in reducing that lingering emotional attachment and helping you move forward realistically.
So you need to paint the full, honest picture of the past, not one filtered through rose-tinted glasses.
Precisely. Be realistic about it.
It sounds like this entire process, leaving and then healing, is really a chance to redefine who you are outside of that whole dynamic.
Absolutely. It's a perfect, if difficult, time to reevaluate your own needs and desires. In life generally, and specifically in future relationships, what was missing in that last one? What felt unhealthy? What do you absolutely need going forward?
Journaling those insights could be valuable.
Invaluable, I'd say. For building self-awareness, this journey of rediscovering yourself, or maybe discovering parts you never knew, is an immense opportunity for personal development and growth.
And finally, once you've done that work, how do you approach future connections? There's a word of caution in the sources about rushing into a new relationship, right? A rebound.
Yes, the sources are quite clear on this. Jumping into a rebound relationship too quickly?
Yeah.
Well, it might feel like a temporary fix for loneliness or pain.
A distraction.
Exactly. But without taking the time to genuinely reflect on the past experience and heal properly, you risk unconsciously repeating the same patterns, making the same mistakes.
Because our past relationship dynamics can influence how we act now.
Subtly, yes. They can guide our behavior in new connections without us even realizing it. So recognizing that challenge, that potential pitfall, is vital.
So the advice is heal first, understand yourself, then when you're ready.
Exactly. When you genuinely feel ready, and only you know when that is, when you've done the work to feel solid as an independent person, don't be afraid to open yourself to a new connection, even if it feels a bit scary after what you've been through.
And when you do,
be clear. Be clear on what you want in a partner based on all that self-reflection you did. Set realistic expectations. Have a conscious intention for the kind of relationship you want to build, rather than just, falling into something with anyone who comes along.
And boundaries.
Oh, yes. Drawing from everything we've discussed, set those clear, healthy boundaries from the very beginning. Don't wait for problems to arise.
Wow. Okay. Navigating toxic relationships, healing from that kind of heartbreak, it is undoubtedly one of the most profound challenges a person can face.
It really is.
But as these sources, and especially stories like Hadil's show, it's also a path that can lead to incredible growth, a deeper understanding of ourselves, and a much clearer picture of what we truly deserve in our connections with others.
That's well put. True connection, whether it's romantic, friendly, familial, it should consistently lift you up. It should add genuine value and light to your life.
Anything that consistently tears you down
is simply not serving your well-being. It's not healthy connection.
And maybe a powerful thought to carry with you, drawn from some of the sources we explored today, something that really resonates with Hadil's journey. Remember that with hardship comes ease. Or, as another verse reminds us, whoever fears Allah, he will make for him a way out.
There's always a path forward. Even when it feels incredibly dark, there's always a way out towards something better.
Definitely something worth reflecting on as you consider the connections in your own life.